Lukas Simianer, welcome to Security Out Podcast. See, it worked. It worked that time. You got it.
Love it.
How's it going, man?
It is going awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
How are you?
Dude, it's one of the hardest things we will all go through as we transition is doing your fucking claims. It is one of the most painful things, and I didn't understand it until I went through my process as to why guys had so much anxiety about it, and it almost cripples a lot of veterans when they're going through their process to the point where they put it off for years, literally years before they connect with the VSO, sit down and go through it. And when I found you on social media and I saw that you had developed an AI to help this process, I was like, holy fucking shit. And then when I saw that you were a paratrooper, I was like, holy fucking shit. I got to talk to this guy. The TBI didn't rattle his brains enough that he was able to go after big things. So, Lukas, thank you for being here today. And let's dive in, man.
Yeah. Once again, thanks for having me. I've been a fan. The memes and the shit posting, in the veteran community are unmatched. I think veterans are some of the funniest individuals, and it's a joy working with them.
Yeah, man.
It's also hard to relate when you're in the civilian world and you're like, what they would call locker room talk is just like, I haven't had my fucking coffee yet. So,
we're a special breed and our comedy is very different. And it's one of the things that I realized when I first started doing this thing is the big thing is the podcast, the mental health, the advocacy, the putting out resources. But just like anybody else, when you're going through it, sometimes you need to laugh first before you can start tackling the serious things. Because I realized that's what we were doing in the team room. All of us were struggling with something, and the vulnerability didn't occur until 3 or 4 hours of solid bantering back and forth. To then you're like, hey man, is anybody else dealing with this type of stuff? And then you get the authentic, real conversations going. So yeah, it's I'd like to say that the memes bring you in, and then you stay for the hard hitting information and resources.
Yeah, I think that is it's a pretty genius lead capture model. Like, Security Halt, you're not really selling anything. You're providing information, helping a community.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a model that myself and I try to create some memes, and now we're like shifting into a value add social media strategy. It's really interesting because this is my first B2C company, right? I'm selling to a consumer. And it's a whole different world. I sold to the government prior to this and at my last startup, and that was a lot easier. It's like each sale is a war, it's a campaign, and piece by piece you're knocking over these things. And with individuals, it's how do I reach an audience? So I think what you've stumbled into and strategically created is pretty masterful, man.
No, thank you, brother. It was definitely something that I had banged my head against the wall because you don't really sell this face. It's I can do a lot with the voice, but you can't sell this. But dude, I let's take it back to the very beginnings of Lukas. Like what led you to join the military?
Well, my grandpa did a career. My grandma was in the Women's Army Corps, and she was a badass. I mean, my grandpa was too. He was all over the place. He was in the Navy at 17 in Panama, and then he was a recruiter during Nam. He was in Korea. He was all over the place. They got married in Heidelberg, Germany. And then my grandma, she was in the Women's Army Corps, and I don't know her actual MOS, if you will, someone in the HR world of S1 type stuff. But her job was in Camp Zama, Japan, and her job was to be like, well, everybody else ran if war broke out again or if there was an attack. Her job was to stay and destroy all the files. So she had a cosmic security clearance and worked under, I forget which general for the life of me, but one that was pretty famous. And she was in that movie, Never Waving a Whack. So anyways, grandma's story, blah, blah. My family had that military history. I was a kid. I was like in 5th grade when 9/11 happened. And I remember watching the Bill O'Reilly show of all things, like every night.
Like every kid does.
Well, that's what my parents watch. And so, the night vision cameras were like, we're going to bomb the shit out of Iraq. When? Yeah. Nobody knows. And then it happened. I was like, whoa, holy shit. And of course, the news by no means captured what the invasion was actually like. But even the glimpses, I was like, that's what I'm going to do one day. I'm going to fight for my country.
Yep.
you know, and so the patriotism and adventure is what got me to join. And I joined at 17. Mom had to sign the permission slip and emancipate me. And yeah, that was why I went in.
Hell yeah. That's a familiar call to action for so many of us in that time period. Um, Looking back, I had the same. I mean, you see the first plane hit while you're home getting ready for school, and you're not quite sure what the fuck's going on. You get to school and you see the second one, it's like, what the fuck's going on? And that was just like a moment in time, like core memory access point. Like it's like, okay, like that's, I don't know where I'm going, but it's gonna be a branch I'm gonna serve. And that,
Yeah.
ultimately gets you to re-enlist and continue going because damn it, we're at war.
Yeah. By the time I joined in 2010, and so in I joined during, I guess, what would be one of the final surges, if you will. And then I
Yeah.
deployed in, I guess you'd call it OEF 12 to 13 to RC South Afghanistan. And at that point, it was the beginning of the mission. When we got there, it was powerful. We're going to take this back. There was land that had been given up essentially because units had been rendered combat ineffective and taken a lot of casualties. And we're like, we're going in to fix it. 80 seconds here. We're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
As the 80-second motto kind of goes. And but at the end of that deployment, halfway through, Obama switched it to a peacekeeping mission. So the ROE changed. Our tier 1 cats couldn't do night raids anymore, at least not supposedly. And,
Allegedly.
at least the SEALs had to stop writing books about them for a few months at least. But regiment was still doing their shit for sure. But point being, um, and then we gave back land that we had lost dudes taking.
Yeah.
And that's when it all went down for me. I was like, nope, this is some Vietnam shit. This is a political conflict. And the farmers that we're fighting and killing are no longer people that I wish to be engaged with.
Yeah, dude.
Know?
That's
like,
that's a moment. And it's funny because, how old were you at the time period?
I was 18 over there.
Oh,
wounded
shit.
when I was 19.
Damn. And you had that ability to reflect on that. And that's something that all of us at some point, a vast majority of us happen to have that, after your third, fourth deployment, you finally realize like, holy fucking shit, like being Taliban is just like waking up and deciding you want to put on the blue shirt this morning. Like it's like one moment you're part of the Afghan commandos, and then if you move back home, you're gonna align with your uncle who's a Taliban leader. So that awakening moment. It's like, fuck, dude. Like, what are we doing here? Like, yeah.
Well, I'm from Nebraska, and for me, I was like, the Nebraskan Taliban would be pretty damn terrifying if a bunch of whoever showed up in their MRAPs and said, "Hey, sorry we killed half your cows. Here's $25,000." Like, nah, bro. Like, no, that shit ain't gonna fly.
No,
like,
no, homie.
like you're gonna see a bunch of corn-fed motherfuckers,
Dude.
You ever seen a combine with 240s mounted on it? You would.
You just painted an amazing picture in my head, dude.
And a bunch of dudes that look like me driving them. Like, you don't want that. You don't want that smoke, So I put that together laying in my hut one night, and I was like, oh, fuck, I gotta get home.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. That's great. That is a pivotal moment that many warfighters don't have till years later. It's like, dude, the reality is, it was 20 years of hard fought war. And when you reflect on it, you have to be able to, and that's why moral injury is such a huge thing right now. People are asking themselves, what was it for? And the reality of it was like, okay, like I'm doing it to keep the dude to my left and my right. All right. Keep them safe, keep them. And maybe there's the ability to reflect back and say, like, hey, maybe we kept some civilians a little bit safer. But at the end of the day, when you dig deeper, you realize that the Taliban are going to continue to fucking Taliban, bro, over and over for years and years, unless unless people get really cool with a lot of violent shit. real fast.
Well, I also think it's an imperial mechanism of thought too. Like, not all cultures want to be governed the same way.
Yes.
In America, I value you, Danny. You and I haven't really talked before, but I value you because you're a creator, you're a
Yeah.
warrior, you're an individual with a unique set of talents doing these things. Other cultures, it's not about that individualism. And religiously, culturally, they they don't want a democracy.
Bingo.
It's like when we deposed Gaddafi. Like, I don't want to get into that realm, but
Oh, bro,
you know what I'm saying, right?
We can go rounds for rounds. Like, this is
yeah, like
this is the beauty
you
of
know
it.
what?
People always undersell our veterans, and they say, oh, they're just stupid idiots. And like, dude, we've been in this conversation for 10 minutes and we're barely touching the surface. And like, dude, some of the smartest motherfuckers I've ever worked with were in 82nd E4s that had gone to Brown or had an education. They're like, fuck it, I don't want to miss out on this experience. If I'm going to be a well-rounded individual, I'm going to go do this. And same with SF. Same in SF. You got guys that give up. I had an individual that was a chemical engineer. I had people from Brown. They're like, dude,
Yeah,
this is a part of my life that I want to I want to have this experience for good, bad, and different. I want to have this. This is a moment in time that may not happen again. And spoiler alert, it looks like we're going to continue to always be a warmongering country. But
yeah.
I've met some of the most remarkably intelligent individuals in the service. And this is a proof of it right here. Being able 10 minutes in, and we're deep diving these moments in our own lived experience in Afghanistan where we realized, like, maybe we were sold on something that was completely different than what we're experiencing right now.
That 1,000%. I think history repeats itself, and there, I wouldn't say a greater good or a greater evil, but there's power in, like, in my head, I always refer to Afghanistan as the two-way range.
Yeah.
What makes America, if for nothing else, what makes America the most lethal country outside of our nukes? It's the fact that we've got a pissed off E5 with 2 divorces, a DUI, a 600 credit score that's soon to be a 420, and he's been deployed 5 times, and he's ready to do some shit.
Yeah.
When unleashed. And at Fort Bragg, I was, we always saw the Green Berets. We always saw them doing their cool shit, walking around, living life, looking happy, driving a nice Tundra. Because, dear God, those Toyota dealerships must have just had a fucking sponsorship with them.
Well, I'll tell you what, you drive a Hilux in combat. That is,
I knew it.
You'll never forget it. You'll never forget the feeling of a Land Cruiser of a Hilux. And I'm still chasing that high, Lucas. I'm still chasing it.
I used to say that. It's like, these assholes drive a Hilux once and get a Tundra. but you see that at Bragg, and then you're like, it's funny. People are like, the most prestigious combat fighting, like, infantry unit that there is outside of, like, Ranger Regiment, but like big global response battalions and battalions of soldiers, right? At that scale, I would say most prestigious. And the truth is that they make life, the command climate, they make life at Fort Bragg so fucking miserable that when you go to war, it's like a damn vacation.
Dude,
you're like, my room's not getting inspected and I just got to smoke this guy? Yo,
done.
Where's that 320? like
call that the yeet cannon. Oh,
yeah, it's and the Russians see that shit. They're like, nah,
yeah,
we're good.
It's so true, man. The greatest moments in life in the military, if you're a paratrooper, infantry, SOF, is when you deploy, because the administrative shit will kill you. It just kills your spirit. That's 100% correct. You live for the Friday night games. You live for deployment. Like, that's, and maybe they do it by design. Maybe they do it on purpose.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a mechanism, but no, the VetClaims thing. I don't know what direction you want to go, but the transition period after.
Oh yeah, that's perfect place to segue into that. Like, you're a young man, you finally have this moment of great awakening, and you realize, hey, there's something better. What was your transition like?
Oh, it was horrendous. It was I mean, that's a long drawn out story, but I'll keep the short version of it. Like, me and the Army didn't get along, especially after deployment. I'd gotten hurt and I'd gained some weight because I couldn't move my leg right. And I was.
What happened?
This is what. I don't like talking about it.
Yeah, no, no,
Not like
no
a
problem at all.
PTSD
No
thing.
problem at all.
Just like, my personal brand is never like what happened to me. It's like the event occurred, but when I moved past all that, right, I get back to the States because I'd gained weight. The 82nd RCSM hated me or whatever.
Yep.
He was like, "Well, we're not going to pin you. You're Purple Heart. You're unsightly." And I was like,
What?
"Yep." I didn't get my Purple Heart until the VA sent it to me like a year after I was out. And I didn't really care because we'd lost dudes. Like the medal didn't matter to me, but it was the principle of like, well, you don't look like a pretty paratrooper. Like, okay, cool, that's great. And then I got out and the Army stiffed me on my last paycheck. Was essentially homeless, living in my Ford Mustang with all my duffel bags of stuff in there. Find a way to get that thing back to Nebraska, piece by piece, just pawning things off every time I need gas, essentially. And I get home and I'm angry, super angry. Like I'm yelling about the dumbest inconvenience. Like my fuse is non-existent,
Yeah.
And we rescued this dog, this little pit bull. I still got him. He's still alive. Because I got out in 2013. He's like 16 or something now. But this pit bull, he was at the Omaha Animal Shelter. He'd been seized by they did a raid on like a fighting ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like a pit bull basset type mix, squatty little dude with muscles, mean as shit. And they got a sign on his thing that says not adoptable. And I'm like, man, I relate to that. And I start going in his kennel. The volunteer employee lady, she's like, no, you can't go in there. I go in there, dude bites me, I backhand him. Like, hey, bro, if we both don't start acting right, we're probably both gonna die. So how about you get shit straight? I'll get mine straight. We just sat there, and that was like my first piece of hope. And I think one of the big things I did want to share, because I've listened to your podcast a good bit, and I think I know the demographic and the people that are listening to it. And the biggest thing is survivor's guilt. That's what I faced. It wasn't necessarily PTSD. The loud noise reactivity that went away after a while, but it was survivor's guilt. A year later, I found myself in this. I'd moved to a double wide trailer in the middle of nowhere because that's all I could afford with the dog, and I tried to figure myself out. And I was at that point, the pistol in hand, that moment. I was like, you either end it now or you live a life worth writing about so that none of their sacrifice is in vain. And like, it was that choice. Like, either end it now and just stop bitching, or your whole mentality going forward is live a life worth writing about, regardless the cost.
Yeah.
And that moment started this upward trajectory from making $11 an hour as a cable guy through many different career paths to now building multiple venture backed companies and like finding fulfillment in my next mission. And I hope that piece right there, that idea helps somebody.
Yeah, bro, that's I sit down with individuals and talk and discuss journeys and pathways out of those dark corners that we find ourselves in. And that's honestly one of the most powerful things, man. That's, um, you know, when we sit down and we think that our suffering is just solely ours, and we just continue to believe that idea that this is only about me, this is only about me, like we're missing the greatest thing ever. And that's that connecting it to common humanity, understanding that we're not alone in our suffering, and it has to be of purpose, of value for something greater. Like we just hold on to this suffering, it's going to do no one any good. It's going to kill us eventually. We're going to reject every bit of love that's around us, family members, loved ones, and we'll just die miserable. But if you turn that into something powerful, force for good, and let it be your fuel, just like you said, like I'm going to live to honor my guys, the people that aren't home, the dudes that didn't redeploy. Yeah. Like that's the most powerful thing we can do, man. Yeah.
I want them to have something worth watching. I think I've put myself in that shoe. If it had been me, what would I want to see my boys doing? It's not bitching and drinking and living a life of complacency of like, oh, well, I'm here. Let me go work this shit ass job and have the shit meager existence. It's no, fuck. It's embody the entire Rudyard Kipling poem of If, right? Bet it all on a game of chance. right? And I think that's a superpower that veterans don't realize they have. And once you worded it beautifully, once they turn that into a fuel, that's when you can start to realize, like, oh, what threatens me? I've had nothing. I've seen horror. I've been through worse than anything anyone here or any situation is going to put me through, right? So what do I have to lose? Let me go.
Yeah.
And I went on the warpath of, I'm going to get straight A's in college. And I did. I dedicated my entire existence to getting straight A's in college. There's a litany of things, and it's not to sound braggadocious. It's in the sense of like, here I am. Like, what else? You know what I mean? Like, why stop here? It keeps going. I got my nursing degree, worked as a nurse, and I was like, I don't like working in fluorescent lights anymore. So I got a military contracting job doing tactical medicine instruction in South America. Paid great money, but well, I might be personally responsible for the average height of the Colombian male being 2 inches taller now, right? And so I had to get the hell out of Dodge, right? Who knew Amex didn't do child support? And I'm joking.
You're a fucking honorary 7th group, Lucas. Ominous Dominus. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That's an offline conversation, but
remember, just throw allegedly.
Allegedly, if you see some curly-haired, half-blonde kid benching 500 at the age of 15, my B, all right? Don't at me, or maybe do if he's going to play soccer or something. Tag me, but like,
oh my God,
I'll come back with the milk. That's bad. That's dark. If I have a PR agent ever, they're just gonna yell at me in retrospect.
Don't worry, we'll splice this out.
You can keep it. I think it's important to be real about shit. But I did that, and then I was like, I'm gonna go be a doctor. I'm gonna go be a DNP, get my nurse practitioner thing going. So I move up to Michigan with a homie that I went to basic with, and it's funny. I'm to tell you how much I've just kind of like thrown it all out time and time again and just chased what I thought would like bring me to the next level of fulfillment and being me. I was going to this Saginaw Valley State University up in Saginaw, Michigan to get my NP degree, right? And Saginaw it's heavy. I mean, like there's Bay City, which is a cute little Polish town, and then there's Saginaw, which is like the ghetto of ghettos. Like if your car is the wrong color, you might not want to drive down that block. Type of situation. And like I'm sitting outside a gas station, this Ice Cube song comes on. It's like, fuck school, I'm gonna be a dope dealer. And I was like, I really don't want to be in school anymore. And that literally set me on a path. I'd met a girl in California who'd moved to Austin, Texas. I wanted to be in Texas, and I was like, I don't want to go to school. I want to be with this girl. I don't know what the hell I want to do, but I know it ain't this. So I dropped out of school and I went to the animal shelter there, and it was funny. They thought I was crazy because I walked in and I was like, I want to walk dogs, And they're like, okay, how many days a week are you going to be in? It's like, how many days a week are you open? Like 6. I was like, okay. Well, how many hours a day? I was like, how many dogs you got? And they're like 30. I was like, probably 6 hours, And they're like, what? I was like, yeah. They're like, when are you going to start? I said, tomorrow. This guy just like flippantly like, whatever, dude. He probably thought I was there to do like some like court appointed community service or something.
Yeah.
But I had a mentor who had passed just prior to that, and he'd always told me, when you're stuck or you're lost, help someone else. Go look for someone to help. And the most immediate thing I could think of was I can help these dogs.
Yep.
And so for about 30 days straight, I went and I walked every dog in that shelter. And it was really funny. I was in the Drinking Bros Austin thing, and I was looking for a way to get to Austin, but I didn't have the money to like buy a house or
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. I was looking for someone to split rent with because it was expensive here even back then. And it was literally on like day 29 or day 30. This dude posted on the Drinking Bros Austin group. He's like, "Hey, I'm a Marine vet. I got a house down here in Buda, just south of Austin, and I'm looking for someone to like rent a room out to, preferably another vet." And I was like, "Boom!"
Fuck yeah.
And then it happened. Rescued one of the dogs that I've been walking. We loaded up my everything I owned in my little F-150. Drove 24 hours to Austin the next day.
Hell yeah, dude.
And that in Austin, I taught myself how to code, blah blah blah, and that's how I got into this realm. I don't want to ramble, but yeah, that's how that. Just like don't. That's a lesson I want to like pass to people. It's like don't be scared of like what you got in your gut. You've been in combat.
Yeah.
What you've got in your gut is 10 times stronger than what anybody else has in their gut.
Dude, it's that limbic system. We don't know what it is. That part of the brain doesn't translate into, the words. Hence why you get that. It's a gut feeling. It's telling you, oh, this is what I should do. We don't listen to it when we transition. I talk to guys all the time and they're just like, I just want a contract. Just need all the money in the world. I'm just going to do the easiest thing. And it's like 6-7 months later, they're fucking miserable or they're drinking and maybe they're doing drugs and maybe their marriage is falling apart. It's like, you're making money, yeah, but you're more stressed than before you were out of uniform, yeah. Now you're drinking nonstop, even more than when you were in uniform, yeah. So it's worse. Well, I mean, I'm making more money, like, but you're miserable. Yeah, I am miserable. And then they go through that process of like finally sitting down and listening to what their guts tell them to do. And for a lot of guys, it's being of service again, or going back to school, or doing something like being an entrepreneur. One of the scariest fucking things. It's like, hey, I have this little idea that I really like, and it's a lot more enjoyable than working at Don's fucking cheese stick factory. And maybe I won't be able to make money right off the bat, but damn it, if I put all my effort into this, maybe I can make it into something. But guys are too scared to follow that limbic and to follow their gut, man. What was the thing that told you to like I'll start coding? What was the original project behind that?
So it was primarily location based. I'd moved to Austin. This is 2018, and it was the tech gold rush. Genuinely, it was like if I had to imagine what the boom in San Francisco was like, it was comparable in a modern sense of if you could write a line of code, you could make 80K.
Really?
Right? Yeah. Wow. If you had a pulse and you could write code in any capacity, even super junior, companies were bringing you in, mentoring you because this AI stuff wasn't on the horizon where, one engineer could act as 10 because they're multiplied by essentially this force multiplier of AI. And that wasn't on the horizon at all. And so they thought the only way to secure our future was to get these ambitious junior engineers in, pay them well enough to stay here and be loyal, and give them the tutelage and mentorship to grow within the engineering field. And so I was like, shit, all right. So I didn't work. I like did little side jobs. I lived off the little VA rating I had at that point, and I was still tangling with them at that point. And I taught myself how to code online, and then I used what was left of my GI Bill to go to this coding boot camp, which was useless. But I was one of two people to get hired out of it, and I felt horrible. They were charging people like 30K, right, to go to this thing, and I was one of two people hired. And I got hired because I was a vet, and then I pulled in my friend who was a former Marine embassy guard, and he was in that camp with me, and we were the only two that got anything. So it was do your research before you spend your GI Bill on any of that stuff, and feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn if you want me to like help you vet something, because like you don't want to waste your time and work on that. Some of them are really good though. But anyways, that was what drove me to get into coding. And it's funny, that first company was an insurance company. They got sued for an accessibility issue, right? And my mom had married this guy who happened to be blind. And so when the company got sued for an accessibility issue, and it was a big, like potentially crippling lawsuit for a medium-sized company, I was like, how do I keep the job that I've got from going out of business? Yeah. Right? Because they're paying me good. And I am loyal as part of a team, I called up my stepdad, if you will, and we kind of knew each other. And I was like, hey man, if I got you paid to sit here and where I implement a fix, you tell me if it works, would you do it? So I get paid. I was like, yeah. Pitched it to the CEO and the CTO the next morning. They had me on a flight back home the next day. In 7 working days, we mitigate this lawsuit just to the power of a rapid feedback loop. And I learned how to write code that enabled blind individuals to navigate the website, but also form a mental map while doing so. Right. And so it's kind of like writing code that was visually appealing to the sighted user, but also the hidden stuff behind it was layered and structured in a way that it made complete sense to them. And that inspired me to create my first company, which was Clusiv. I built the world's first e-learning platform for people who are blind, and taught them job skills to get into the modern workforce. Essentially, there's no reason
out of here.
Yeah, there's no reason blind people can't use digital meeting platforms and email, but the problem is 20 years ago, your entry level job didn't need technology. Nowadays, the most entry level job needs probably 5 to 6 tech tools at minimum, between an email suite, a CRM, whatever. But no one thought about blind people. No one thought, how do we keep the training for them to onboard to this up to date? And so that's what I built. I built a platform that was hyper accessible. We built content that was for them. I built a company where 50% of my employees were blind. And then I sold into state vocational rehab agencies around the country, and I raised a little over $4 million in venture capital in doing so. And it was an absolute blast and an adventure and insane.
Dude.
Yeah.
I love how you speak about this so nonchalantly. Just revolutionize the way that, blind people have access to the internet. And, dude, this is amazing, man. Like,
I do my best,
Denny, I'm just like any other, young veteran out there, changing lives for millions of Americans, except when I wake up, I just jump into my pants. Holy shit, man.
And this might be biased to me, but the thing that I want to tell people is like I'm special. Hey, sure. I'm dyslexic. Sure. Whatever. You are too. Like, you've got, maybe it's not building a tech company. Maybe it's building a pressure washer company. But as a veteran, you know how to fucking lead.
Yeah.
Like there's 2 things that led to me being good with Clusiv. One was like skill and opportunity. Right. And that's, I worked on making myself more valuable. And that's how I ended up getting more value out of life. That is an inherent thing no matter what you're doing. But the other part of it is that the leadership skills in the military, and just from what you've been through, I had 0 turnover. In a startup, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
In any company, that's a game changer. If you can avoid having people turn over because of toxic leadership, or because they don't feel taken care of or cared about, or they feel like they're just a number, right? If you can avoid that, you can outperform anybody in any vertical anywhere. Window washing, power washing, tiling, roofing, I don't care. And I wish more veterans would dig deep and be like, bro, let me go out execute somebody.
Yeah. Dude, we will outwork you. I always say that. Like,
yeah.
The
100%.
Like, look, this is something that's unique to us. And I tell guys, like, if you're going into an endeavor and it seems scary, it seems like you don't have a team, like, look, I'm right there with you. Like, but you have to look at like all the tools, and the most important tool you have is you will outwork your competition. When they go to sleep, you're going to be writing down everything you need to do to execute for the next day. You're going to be doing all the editing, all the audio production, everything that you need to do for that entire next week's rollout. Like, don't discount how powerful that is. When everybody's like, oh, I'll do 1 episode. Fucker, I'll do 3. Like, I'll sit down. Like, I don't give a fuck who. I will sit down and I will send out millions of emails, and I will get in front of people, whereas you'll be satisfied with 5. Like, that's a thing that every veteran has. Like, I don't care if, and people shit on our admin guys, and I make fun of our S1 too, but dude, soldier's a soldier, Marine's a Marine. Like, you have that dog in you. You have the tenacity. Like, be willing to bet on yourself. And then, hey, embrace the hard fucking work because you've done it before.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, one of my favorite things, I said some real John Wayne shit to a guy who was a competitor, and we were in a meeting, and he was trying to flex on me because they were ahead of me at this point, and
yeah,
they had bigger backing, more resources, a fully built out tech team, and I was just me, at that point. And he was talking about, well, we're going to exit for 30 million, and we're going to do this. And I was like, it's funny. I leaned in. I was like, it's funny. You really look forward to that exit, don't you? And he's like, well, yeah, it's going to be huge. I said, that's the difference. I like this. I like the fight. You won't win. I was
damn.
6 months later. 6 months later. 6 months later, I was mopping the floor with him. I was like, that's the thing, dude. You're thinking about the Lamborghini. You know what I'll do? I'll go rent the Lamborghini, text your girlfriend, and outperform you. That's how we win. Like,
you see, that's the thing about me, John. I actually like to fight.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like, God, veterans have such a superpower in them innately, especially. Yeah. I don't want to ever denigrate veterans who didn't go to combat. You are still a veteran. You served. You signed the check. Yeah. But I will say, too, if you've been to combat in any capacity, you know how to win the day, right? Like, you know what it means to be mission focused, laser vision, no distractions, left and right of you. That's it. Like, yeah. That is a superpower. And if you can channel that into any sort of business, and even if you don't want to start a business, that risk appetite isn't yours. You got kids, whatever. I don't care. In your job, right? How do you become an entrepreneur? How do you innovate and make things better and exceed and grow? And I don't know. I don't want to pontificate on that, but it is, I just have so much conviction that veterans are super enabled if they can turn it into fuel.
Yeah. Dude, where did this businessman come out of you? Was it always something that was a part of you that you were naturally able to just tap into, or did it come through those, trial and error situations? Because sitting here and talking with you, I'm like, I've talked to a lot of individuals that are like, oh, I created a business from scratch. I created this, but like, man, it just seems like when you were in the barracks, you were the guy that had the barracks store. You had the ability to sell somebody, and you were always creating something. Like, how did you develop this part of your life?
Dude, that's one of the funniest things. They thought I was clinically retarded in high school. What? Yeah. I'm not fucking with you, man. They're like, yo, homeboy, he's a little special. He doesn't quite get the hit, does he?
You see this line, this seminar, this is Lukas.
Yeah. I was a badass kid. I was, not in a good way. I was doing dumb shit. I was racking up felonies at the age of I don't know, 12. And just dumb shit, right? And the teachers kept handing every parent teacher conference. My mom would come home with 3 different military school brochures. And that used to be the metric for how shitty I was. It was like, I got 4 this time. and and in the Army, admittedly, I was not a good soldier. Some dudes that I served with are going to listen to this, like, yeah, he was a turd. Like, yeah, I was. I didn't like listening. I wanted to know why we're cleaning out a Connex when it's 120 fucking degrees in the broad sun, instead of, hey, let's do those magical flexible hours because you own us 24 hours a day. Why don't we come back at 1600? It's Fort Bragg. Let's not die. No. We need it now. And then for asking the question, go smoke yourself to death. Like, roger that. Cool. Glad you're taking care of me, Chief. But
thanks.
So I was not. I was not. Admittedly, I have no claim to fame in my service. I was a dude that barely scraped through it. But the business thing came. I don't know how to say that eloquently, but I was dumb, and it was through pure brute force, right? My co-founder from the last company, his name's Tom Jackson. I always give that man a lot of credit. With Clusiv, when I was starting it was brute force. I was talking to these VCs, and I had no idea what a VC wanted or what that deck should look like. And they all would just say, well, you're too early. I'm like, that doesn't help me get better or closer. And they're like, yeah, it's not really our job. I'm like, okay. Well, Tom is working for a prominent VC fund. I pitch him, and he's just like, the way he says, he's like, I knew something was different because this dude comes in looking like an NFL linebacker, and he's also like empathetic and talking about helping blind people, and he like knows the market, but he doesn't know how to talk about the business.
Yeah.
And me and him build a friendship over the course of a year. And I had to, when it comes to resilience and to show you how much brute force it really took, I pitched 185 investors before I got my first yes. And so to put that in perspective for someone who's never talked to an investor before, that's not just me saying, hey, Danny, here's my idea. Would you like to invest in it? It's me saying, hey, Danny, here's my entire life story. Here's why I've dedicated the past year of my life to this thing. And then you in return saying, well, that's dumb and you're too early. And 185 times.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah. Yeah. Leave the donut, right? Like, can you put that coffee back? Like, you fuck.
Stop eating my sesame cake and get the fuck out.
Yeah, seriously. The amount of upper deckers I've taken in Austin VC offices is innumerable.
Say, before I go, where's your bathroom?
Oh, dude, by number 160, I stopped taking the lid off the top. You know, we call that the condo. That's right. I made an iteration of the upper decker.
Just say yes. We don't want to deal with the cleanup.
six pending lawsuits later. But allegedly.
Learning.
185, right? And it's so funny. The world gifts you, God, whatever you want to call it, gifts you when you prove that you will not quit. David Goggins has that thing. Nobody wants to fight something that keeps coming back. Yep. You know, I will destroy whatever is in front of me. And I'm probably misquoting him, but whatever. And, you know, someone's got to carry the boat. It's not me.
That's all that matters.
Not my cup of tea. But, you know, the 185 happens, and all in a matter, literally, I can't, it should be a movie. In 12 hours, Tom's like, hey, man, let's meet up. So we meet up at the WeWork that I was at. And he's like, we essentially asked each other out at the same time. He's like, I want to build this with you. And I was like, dude, that's funny. I was going to say, I want you to come build this with me. Yeah, it was very romantic. We kept our socks on. And, you know, so literally me and him handshake a deal. An hour later, I get a call from this VC that I'd met in Virginia at a program. He's like, hey, we're in for 100K. I was like, oh, shit. And then literally the next day, I get a call from the managing director of Techstars, which is like the #1 accelerator in America. It's more selective than like Harvard, Dartmouth, and Yale combined, I think is their statistic. It's like 10,000 companies apply for each session. They let 10 in, right? So 10,000 hyper-driven, highly motivated tier 1 cats are coming at this, and you get picked as part of the 10 that get to go. Wow. And that level of validation opens a floodgate because people are like, oh shit, Techstars is in? I want in. And that's what happened. So a year of nothing, a year of you're stupid, a year of you're wrong, a year of what the fuck are you doing, kid? And in 24 hours, I've got $100,000. Well, at that point, $220,000 between the two programs, meetings lined up that would end up with me closing $860,000 within 3 months. Wow. And that is how Clusiv started. And so be resilient. You're going to feel insane and you're not going to feel normal. And if you feel normal, you're fucking wrong. Stop it. Like, if you feel normal, you ain't trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that, like, I hope that helps somebody. I've never really framed it like that on a podcast before, but for the vets listening, I hope they realize, like, it's okay to feel a little crazy that you're running at. I feel crazy with VetClaims right now. You know, it's do veterans really want this? Do they really, is this really a big enough issue? I see everybody complaining about the VA process, but at the same time, oh man, that's a whole nother topic. I don't know if you want to get into it. But...
Oh, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. Let's dive into that, man. Like, how did you pivot from Clusiv into this new endeavor?
So the ego part of me wants to brush it off, but I'll be very, very authentic here because I think it is a critical point. I had the worst thing happen to me that can happen to a startup founder. I built the team. We had success. We did the unthinkable. We sold into 37 state agencies in a matter of a year's time, right? We helped thousands and thousands of people get meaningful jobs, change their life paths, find fulfillment, feel like they're a part of society. We released an impact report showing, hey, we're 7 times more effective than what the state governments have been doing. We're costing you almost 70% less money, right? And here's the output. The state government, the vocational rehab directors of about 13 different states then collaborated and said, we can't keep buying from Clusiv, because we were essentially endangering their jobs. And we were going to lead to a budget decrease because we were doing what they would pay to send someone to a nonprofit that would achieve nothing. And the nonprofit would be cheaper on the front, like, oh, it's only $350 a month, as opposed to like us, where we're like $7,000 a seat. But the thing is, their term of service, the amount of time they would send a candidate through that would be like 10 years. Yeah. So the outcome, we were so much more effective and efficient. But anyways, our revenue went, I won't state a number, but it went from up there to 0 in a month after we released that impact report. We were too effective. We made the government look bad. And I had a bunch of venture capitalists come at me. Now that's the worst feeling in the world. Everybody's mad at you because their money's about to be gone. And it's terrifying and it sucks. And there's no instruction manual. And all you want to do about it is care about your team. All you want to do is make sure everybody that has put faith in you is okay. And you're almost powerless. And it sucked. That was one of the hardest in business. That's the hardest thing I've ever dealt with, maybe in my life, outside of the survivor's guilt early on. Yeah. And I had to lay off most of my company about 2 weeks before Christmas, just the way it timed out.
Fuck.
And I had a choice of raising more money and essentially wasting more investor capital because I knew it wasn't going to work. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I can't do that. But also my team, what's the lesser of two evils here? And I was just radically transparent. I was always radically transparent with my team, but especially then I was like, hey guys, I'm sorry. And I will say this, what shortly followed was the most prideful moment of my life. And I've got a lot of prideful moments. I got an award from the Texas Business Hall of Fame. Just a lot of cool things have happened. But the thing in my life that I'm most proud of, and I don't know that anything will ever top this, is those employees. On Christmas Eve, I got a text. And it was a gift card to a barbecue joint. And it said, thank you for creating the best work environment, the best team that we'd ever been a part of. It was an honor. And I was like, dude, I just fucking derailed people buying houses. I derailed money. Christmas.
Yeah.
I felt like the biggest fuck. It wasn't in my control, but no less, I felt like the biggest fuck that could ever exist. And to know that like those people saw not only through that, but we're so grateful for the opportunity to have that experience, for working under me, following me. I was like, man, that was my exit. I didn't need millions of dollars. That was worth more than any dollar amount ever. And so it took 6 months of my life after that to just figure myself out. And then after figuring myself out a bit, I worked for the Spooky Boys in DC on a contract, helping them identify AI solutions to solve problems. And I got to interview these really cool AI CEOs. And I was like, Asperger's cool product, Asperger cool product. Hires a bunch of Chinese interns. No. Like, yeah. Like, oh, dude, that was the funniest thing. Like, I've got an agency email and I'm working with this AI company based out of California. And for some reason, like, the person they chose to put me in touch with is like, make up a name here, like Feng Li, right? And I'm like, whatever. It's California, probably American. but no less. Let's go to LinkedIn. Let's do a little backtrack. Like University of Qingdao. Like I'm like, fuck no, dude. Like, bro,
No.
like, oh, you want in the program? Of
What are
course
you
you do,
doing?
asshole. Like,
Oh
and
God, hopefully
so
it doesn't get me banned. But the oh, hello, Lucas. I wonder you give me the access.
I would love to know what the CIA is planning, like, no, motherfucker. Like, that literally happened multiple times. And I was just like, what are you doing? Yeah, what are you thinking?
Oh
Come on, man.
man.
Anyways, so, so vet your interns, huh? A couple people lost some big deals because they didn't vet who they were letting intern at their companies. Um, and so I did that, but with AI, I realized like people are thinking about AI all wrong. They're thinking about a replacement strategy. And me
Yep.
being a machine gunner in the army, I'm always looking for a force multiplier because that's what I loved feeling like. And I'm like,
Yeah.
bruh, AI is the 240. AI is a Mark 19. It's not
Yeah.
replacing that soldier. It's turning one soldier into the fire effect of 10 or 20, right? And so, okay, how do I create an AI enabled service that simplifies the most painful thing a veteran deals with after service? And that's finding the next mission and getting their VA claim straight. And so
Yep.
that's what I built. And I trained an AI model on every expensive part was every medical journal that's been published in the last 20 years. Um, yeah. And then the entirety of the law, 38 UCR, that governs the VA, and then former case law of pretty much every time a veteran's taken the VA to court. And so when someone submits a claim through us, it's not, or they don't submit it through us. They come to us to use our tool, I should say. And in using our tool, they essentially input what's going on with them, and then we produce a almost irrefutable backing document that so far has a 100% success rate. I'm sure that won't last. The VA is still going to say yes, no to some things.
Yeah.
But in general, uh, it's really hard when you put the VA in a position where them disagreeing with you would require them standing up in court and saying, this guy we just brought out of med school disagrees with the Harvard Medical Review. Yep. Oh, okay. Best of luck, Chief. God bless.
Yeah.
And it's not only the irrefutable evidence; it's the service behind it. I went through VSOs. VSOs are great. Not all of them are created equal.
Yep.
Um, but the fact is, no matter the VSO, no matter how good they are, they're one person typically. And they're in a courthouse somewhere or a city building, and they are serving thousands of people. And you have to schedule a month out. You have to take time out of your day to go there, and then after you leave, they got 10 more people to see.
Yep.
Versus with us, we're trying to be the TurboTax of VA claims. You come,
Yeah.
you get it done. You can do it from the comfort of your own bed. Shit's ready to file in a week, and we cover you if there's anything that you need to do wrong. Not, I don't want to be
Oh
like
no shit.
salesy. No, that's just like, but that's the product ideation behind how we built this up.
Yeah. That is amazing product. Like fuck having to meet and greet, potentially 2-3 different VSOs till you find somebody that you kind of jive with, because that's the lived experience for many veterans. They meet the first one, kind of a dick or out of touch, grumpy old dude, and it's like, fuck, I don't want to sit down with this asshole. Like, fuck that. Like, where you can do it online with something that's been developed to help you out using case studies and the law and everything. It's like, yeah, like you just said, TurboTax for claims. Absolutely sold.
It is. Oh, thank you. And it is interesting though. There's a lot of people who are very adamant, like you should never pay for a thing. You should. But those same people will happily go on about how broken the system is.
Yeah.
And it's the other thing they'll say is, well, you should never use somebody who's not accredited.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, the difference is, right? Imagine if the Fed said no one can get paid for helping you file your federal income taxes. TurboTax, TaxSlayer, none of those companies would exist, right? They just wouldn't, right? It
Yeah.
costs money to build a company. It costs money to build tech and solve problems, um, and that's where we're at. The VFW and the current law in place, the way the VA runs things is you can't be accredited and also be a for-profit company. So
Yeah.
essentially, what they've done is they've locked in this system to always beat the system. And the only way that that changes is through capitalism. And that's why America exists.
Yep.
You know? And so
Yeah.
it is interesting. We haven't had many haters. But to those that do come at us, it's always just like, well, what do you propose actually? Oh, you want to get a lobbyist? Okay. I've done that. I wish you the best of luck. You know, like it's interesting, man. It's very interesting, but it's been very rewarding helping veterans, hearing these service stories, and also just seeing the relief and like, oh, there is hope that I can just get this knocked out.
Yeah. How many? What's a ballpark number of veterans have chosen to go through and utilize your services?
So we did 36 test cases before I ever went public with the company because I wanted to make sure that things worked. So that took for them to get through, right, a little over 6 months on average. And so knocked all that out. And once we had like pretty positive results, right, we hadn't lost any, nothing had gotten kicked back. There wasn't any glaring issues going on. That's when I opened it up. And since we've opened it up in the first month, we've done over 100 with no paid marketing. Just me posting on LinkedIn, sharing memes on Instagram, um, and the reviews, we've shared a few of them on Instagram and LinkedIn, but they come in so much like we don't have like a media person yet. We're looking for one. If you're a veteran that's good at social media editing and content, hit me up. We're trying to make this a 100% veteran team. So
hell yeah.
Yeah,
dude, that's awesome, man.
It's been
What's
fun.
next, man? It's pretty fair to say that you've kind of figured this world of being an entrepreneur. So are you looking for a new endeavor, or are you just focused on this?
Purely focused on VetClaims. It goes a lot bigger than just being a company. My game plan, my master plan, if you will, for this is that we actually can drive systemic change by owning the data. Right now, the
Yeah.
VA gets away with a lot of things. The government gets away with a lot of things because we have a splintered million VSOs across the country, and they don't have a CRM. They're not using one Salesforce, right? If they're in Bexar County, Texas, versus they're in Plano, Texas, they don't see they don't see stats at all. They see numbers processed, but they don't see effects of fire, right? No one's doing a BDA, if you will. And so by becoming the dominant company in this space, which we will be in the next 2 years, right? In doing that, what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to go and say, hey, Congress, you know, 80% of whatever, 20,000 veterans filed for tinnitus, right? You denied initially 30% of them, right? And of that 30%, 100% were eventually approved. So why don't we do this? Let's save everybody time and money and say, hey, if you've been to combat or if you're in one of these MOSs, you have tinnitus. And if you claim it, you have it. And it's assumed, right? And by doing that, we're saving how much in government spending in these stupid exams, right? We're spending how much in claims backlog timelines by people even having to think about it. Let's make this binary. And tinnitus is just the start. There's so many things where it should be an assumed, like the VA told this guy he was a 13 Bravo gun bunny, right? On 155s. You don't have TBI. Brother, have you been near a fire mission?
Bro, this is one thing that I talk about, and I will take a little bit of time to talk about this. The exposure to concussive and repetitive blast is something that we as veterans, as service members, need to be aware of. It's not about the penetrative blast. It's not about getting hit in the head one time, having a rollover one time. It's everything you're doing is cumulative. If you're an infantryman, if you're a mortarman, if you're an artilleryman, you have been exposed to so much blast. It's not just PTSD. The VA, as you know, wants to say that it's all PTSD. No, we now know that it's TBI. You've been sitting behind on the gun line for how many years? Doing how many rounds? Bro, you've taken some damage to your dome piece. We have to be willing to talk about it. And at the end of the day, we have to fight for it. Because PTSD, as we all know, you can recover from. You can get over. TBI, yes, you can get better. You can improve. but that's a whole lot fucking different than having PTSD.
Yeah. That's something that, like, just like the NFL is doing with CTE and probably 10 times the funding and expertise focused on this, right? Yeah. They're still figuring out bit by bit, piece by piece, what it actually does. Yeah. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And, but that is the game plan with VetClaims, is turning this into a force to actually modernize the process. With my last company, I went to the government and I said, look, we are the solution. We make this better. Use us, please use us. And ultimately, no. This time around, I say, okay, how do I hold the cards? Because when I have the cards and I have the data and I go to Congress and I get on the news, you're not going to deny it. Yeah. And you're going to react quickly. Because whoever's president at that point, right? I don't care if I have to wait till next election cycle and, it's October and I'm like, hey, look what you're doing with the VA. That's when we will see things happen in an instant. Things that we've been trying to get done for a decade, for 2 decades. Things the Legion and the VFW have tried to do for many decades. Yeah. And so that is it's my sole focus.
If anybody's going to be able to do it, it's definitely, I'm willing to put my money on you, brother, because like all of us are listening to this episode now. One thing we've realized about Lukas is he doesn't fucking quit. So if anybody can get shit going, it's going to be you, my man. Lukas, if people want to get a hold of you, or they want to utilize your VetClaims AI, where can we go?
So if you want to check out VetClaims AI, we do free claim strategy calls, whether you use us or not. We make sure you're on the right track. If it's not us, we'll point you in the right resource. But you just go to vetclaims.ai. That's our website. And there's a calendar literally right on the homepage where you can just book a time. If you want to follow me, if you want to reach out to me personally, LinkedIn is honestly the best approach. I'm pretty vocal on there. Also pretty entertaining at times because people are like, he won't talk shit. It's a professional platform. I'm like, oh no, I'm my own boss. I will. I will. But so hit me up on LinkedIn is probably the most efficient way to get through to me. And if it's a veteran entrepreneur thing, I definitely hit me up. Check out Warrior Rising as well. They're the number 1 veteran entrepreneur resource in the space. So I'm also on the board of them, but it's a great. I went through them and they were pivotal. So I'm rambling.
Hell yeah, man, Lukas! I can't thank you enough for being here. Your story, honestly, like, fucking blew me away, man. I can't wait to have you back on to talk more shit about being paratroopers, entrepreneurial endeavors. There's infinite things that I could go on for hours, but dude, just fucking A, man. Absolute pleasure, dude. To all y'all listening, thank you for tuning in.